Welcome, everyone, to Starting and Growing Your Career in Technology with HashiCorp. Today, we've got a wonderful panel of people here to share 5 different lessons on this topic, both getting started in the technology field, but also growing within it. We're going to hear their stories, the why behind the lessons, and actionable advice you can actually put into play. We also want you, the audience, to get involved. So please ask questions, because in between each of the panelists, we'll leave time for discussion. And also, we'll be doing some HashiCorp certification voucher giveaways, which will allow you to take our various certification exams, which we've actually got a, let's see here, a little banner here we can show. Perhaps we can see that with a link to more information about the certifications. And but if you are going to get involved, let's not, let me let me put up the correct one here. There we go, certifications, right? But if you are going to get involved, please follow our community guidelines. I know I sort of zipped through that information quickly, and just be polite, professional, respectful, and everything else that you see in the link for our community guidelines. Okay, so obviously, there are a variety of other faces on here with me, our panelists. So why don't we go ahead and introduce them, starting with Fallon.
Hello, where everybody is located today. I am in Texas, South Texas, San Antonio, Texas, to be exact. So Central Time Zone. I am on the people team, going down the org chart, talent acquisition, going down the org chart. I'm a corporate groups recruiter, honing in on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging processes and impacts as we hire and retain talent here at HashiCorp. Going in from here, I am going to introduce more of what my lesson is and help us kick off from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Fallon. And we're going to get to this awesome lesson soon. The next up on our panel here, we're going to hear Jasmine. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Jasmine White. I am tuning in from New York City. So be prepared to hear some New York City noise, because that's what we're all about. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. I serve as the community manager at HashiCorp. So this is really exciting for me to be able to meet some of the community virtually, of course. So I'm really excited to talk to you all a little bit about my story, my journey, getting here to HashiCorp, and hopefully impart some exciting tidbits for how you can also apply that to your journey. So looking forward to sharing more with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasmine. So Val, you're up next.
Hello, I'm Val Conklin. I'm an engineer on the Vault team. I've been with HashiCorp almost 2 years now, and I'm excited to talk to people today a little bit about my experience in becoming a back-end software engineer, sometimes dabbling in full stack. Yeah.
And Brandon, you're up next.
Hi, y'all. I'm about 90 minutes north of Fallon in Austin, Texas. And I'm Brandon Hayes. I'm a senior manager here at HashiCorp. I manage the Terraform core team and a small group of other teams here. And I'm excited to hear everybody's story.
All right. Thank you, Brandon. And I am Cole Morrison. I'm a developer advocate here at HashiCorp. Random aside, Brandon, I'm a huge Sonic fan. So every time I see that plushie up there, it makes me smile. Okay, so how this is going to work. We've got 5 panelists here, including myself. Each is going to tell their lesson, the story behind it, and what you can do with it. They'll also talk about their career growth in context of HashiCorp for those of you interested in joining us. And in between each of the panelists, we're going to have some discussion between us, but also answer any questions the audience might have. And also, since we've got a bona fide HashiCorp recruiter with us in Fallon, she's going to be taking these lessons that you hear and putting them through the eyes of a recruiter and teams looking to hire. This will give you more. It'll make what you're hearing today a lot more directly applicable. And speaking of Fallon, we're actually going to kick off with her starting first. So Fallon, let's go ahead and spotlight you here so the whole world can see you better.
I was Jasmine, just for 1 second. Hello, everyone. Again, diving into my lesson. And really, this was really difficult for me to think about because it's like from networking to the ABC. As if any of you are real estate agents, ABC is always be closing, but on my perspective, it's always be curious. And then also diving into also know what the hell you want while being curious. So that's my lesson. And the why is for satisfaction, personal fulfillment. You get what you get and you don't have a fit. My 5-year-old tells me that all the time. And it's really like, if you don't pick your destination, then where are you going? And my story started off, I was a public relations major. Thought I wanted to be in PR. Thought I wanted to be a sports PR person. And a recruiter reached out to me following like my post college graduation. I thought it was a spam email. She reached out to me again. She said, "I'm not spam. I'm looking at you and your profile on LinkedIn." This is when LinkedIn came out. I was really excited about like, whoa, somebody just messaged me on LinkedIn. I'm getting a job opportunity. And it was for luxury cars and a European company where she was like, hey, they haven't branched out into social media. They haven't branched out into North American dealerships. So there's 189 dealerships. They have a specific demographic. You listed on your resume that you know how to like hone in on demographics. Can you come in, build out a social media campaign, and then also like an incentive program for all of these dealerships and really help these dealerships identify other demographics. And from there, one, I fell in love with my recruiter and the whole process and the experience. And then two, I honed in on demographics and helped move the pin on different buyers in this luxury car business. And then from there, I looked at my recruiter when my time was like, I was ready to navigate in somewhere else. I was like, how can I become you? And she told me, she was like, you know what, don't start off as a recruiter, start off in HR to understand more about the person, the psychological safety that a person wants with a company. So I went into employer relations. I'm an empath, so I cry a lot. And whenever I was in employer relations, I looked at my boss at that time and I was like, how can I go to something different in HR, learn about benefits, learn about like payroll. And I was like, you know, what is the fun side? And my boss was like, come with me to a job fair. I'm going to teach you how to read resumes. Come with me to a job fair. We'll start hiring people and seeing if you like that. Ended up loving it. Went to a new company, music and entertainment. And in that background, they threw me in corporate IT. And I was like, what the heck is this? How do I hire for a tech stack? Who do I need to go to best? Landed really focusing on everything that was underneath the CIO and enjoyed learning the technical acumen, learning about the security platform. And this company, it's funny, they were going into the cloud and my executive recruiter my executive champion, but more of my mentor was the global CISO, David Newman. If you're watching, hello, thank you for everything. He sat down with me, talked to me about how his teams were trying to get rid of data, push everything into the cloud. I was hiring for his teams. I was understanding their tech stack. Then they started presenting Terraform. And I was like, what the hell is Terraform? Why is everybody using Terraform? And then from there, I was like, oh, it's HashiCorp. He talked to me about HashiCorp. And I looked at Dave and I was like, Dave, I really want to learn more about like the tech space. I don't want to be in music and entertainment and hire like a corporate IT team. I want to like really be in the tech space. And I was very intentional about like why I wanted to do it because I'm curious, wanted to learn, wanted that technical acumen, wanted to build like my technical network. And then from there, he was like, look, if they have a position, go out there and apply. Funny thing, I wasn't looking at HashiCorp, and one of my like high school friends works here as well. And he was like, hey, Fallon, wrote me on LinkedIn 7 years later, responded to a response that I told him from 7 years ago, like, hey, you need to optimize your LinkedIn, so on and so forth. Then he reached out to me. He's like, hey, there's a position at HashiCorp. Are you interested? I said, yeah, I'm interested. came here. I have great leaders. During my interview process, I felt all of the principles. I felt everything, and the intentional aspect of what I wanted with a company and the technical acumen that I wanted to build, and then also the impact that I wanted to make with the legacy that we have that we're creating here at HashiCorp, from the DEIB perspective, from the talent perspective, from retaining, from our products, from our customers. I was like, if I can do what I want to do, intentionally do what I want to do as a recruiter, hone in and look at organizations, our departments, our soup orgs, and really work with our leaders and our hiring managers on retaining and attracting talent, this is a place for me. So really an action plan from there. And if you don't know how, you can become like curious. Just ask questions, find your network, know what the hell you want. And by knowing what the hell you want, write it out, make a list. I write everything down. And I also use an Asana board. But then figure out what you like and what you don't like. What are your triggers? What is the scope of the role? What are your roadblocks? If you have roadblocks, do you have like leadership that you can trust? Do you have champions that you can trust? Do you have mentors that you can trust? Connect with those champions. Those are your sounding board. And then really here growing at HashiCorp, my voice matters. My perspective matters. I have a sense of belonging. I get to work with the greater TA team, our talent acquisition team, on all of the processes to make more things more inclusive, to make sure that everybody externally and internally has a place and a sense of belonging whenever they're going through a full cycle recruitment process, or if they're exiting, or what our hiring managers aren't understanding and they want to dive more deeper into uncomfortable conversations, and having those comfortable conversations with them. Like I have more ownership in that, and I've been able to learn the knowledge through others and their perspectives and my teammates. Really, that is my lesson. That's my why. That's my story. I'm really excited to hear everybody else's story here and for them to share it with you as well.
That's awesome, Fallon. You know, I admittedly, especially when we first talked, the whole be curious thing, that can be something that's difficult to keep an appetite around at times, but also you're knowing what you want. That's something that I admittedly have been terrible with throughout my career. Probably should have been more so. But to go back to your advice, right? Write stuff down. I think when we talked, you had one thing specifically, right? You said like figure out exactly what you don't want to do for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you expand on that for me? Like, what did you know? Like how can people apply that a little more?
So I knew at the moment, like when I was intentionally on the market, that I didn't want to be in the office. Love you, HashiCorp, for being a remote first company. Thank you so much. So having that as like I do not want to go in the office. I have a 5-year-old. I want the life flexibility, but then also I didn't want to be siloed. And that was a big thing, was understanding that at HashiCorp, am I going to be siloed? On my team, am I going to be siloed? On my greater team, am I going to be siloed? Is the business, the company siloed? No. Like asking questions, my interviews, onboarding, now being here for a year and a half. That was like, I did not want to be siloed to where I couldn't grow. And I see the growth here.
Nice. What about the rest of our panelists here? Do y'all have any thoughts on this? Be curious, know what you want. Love to hear from y'all. I'm going to call you out, Jasmine.
I'm struck because, well, not to give too much into my next section, because Fallon is a great part of that. But I'm also struck by, how similar, I did not know this beforehand, how similar our backgrounds are, because my background is actually in PR. And I was like, you know what, I'm not necessarily feeling this. So I think it's really exciting to hear how someone from a totally different background like PR can still manage to segue themselves into a completely different industry, right? Because of just the skills that you have, right? You say that you are, familiar with social media and you like to connect with people, which I totally resonate with. Maybe not so much the social media part, but definitely, connecting with people. And so I'd love to hear, like, were you afraid of knowing that your background is in PR? Kind of, were you afraid to take that leap and transition into a different industry altogether?
Moving into the tech and just going from PR background and then going into my first job out of college. Literally, my thought was like, why am I gravitating to HR? Why am I gravitating? And I think it was more of like contingency plans. And for those of you that have been public relations manager or backgrounds or majors, you hone in a lot on contingencies and contingency plans. And I think that's where like retaining talent, where I grew and understood like, whoa, I like HR because I get to know everybody internally. And then I grew into a recruiter and I was like, whoa, now I get to learn everybody externally, help them find their place internally. And then now I'm constantly thinking about how can we retain them? How can we make sure people are engaged? How can we make sure people are happy? How can we make sure the culture can be inclusive to everyone worldwide? So it's like a full cycle of events, but it all stems from PR. Taking that leap from luxury cars, music and entertainment into tech, completely, like that's a whole other story of fear of the unknown, fear of am I going to be validated? Is my voice going to be validated? Are people going to listen to my perspective? Are they going to understand where I'm coming from? How I want to advocate for others that come from a non-traditional tech background. Even whenever I was a tech recruiter, I loved finding people from boot camps, people that were 12 years in their career, a military veteran, served 12 years. He went to a boot camp, and then how I could take what he did in his military career, make it equivalent to him moving forward into the tech industry, being a software engineer. He just went through a boot camp. Let's bring him on. Let's show like how he can grow here. Just the pivoting from different backgrounds also. Yeah.
That's wonderful. In fact, that kind of foreshadows some of the other stuff we're going to talk about as well. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Any questions we have from the audience? I've seen a few more around general HashiCorp, which thanks to our moderator, Alexandra Freeman, who's been helping out with that. But anything else from anyone? All right. Well, Jasmine, this works out that you asked the question because you are up next.
Awesome. So I am Jasmine White. And again, for a brief second, I was Fallon Petty. But I am Jasmine White, and I am the community manager here at HashiCorp. So I am really excited. What I love about being community manager is that I really do get to manage community, right? That means that I get to interact with many of you who are streaming with us virtually, and also the people on our internal teams, making sure that if questions arise or someone needs a speaker, they want to know more about Terraform, more about Vault, more about Waypoint, that I can try to connect them with the right person. So that's, really what I do. A little bit more specifically, I work heavily with the HashiCorp user groups, and we'll talk a little bit more about community and why community is important. But I implore and encourage all of you to join a hug, right? So join a HashiCorp user group. They're international. We have them in over 60 countries now, I believe. We have over 150 groups, and it's really exciting to be able to work with the community who uses our tools, who gives feedbacks on, what we can do to improve what they enjoy. So it's a great position for me to be in, because I love to connect with people. And so moving on into a little bit about my story, I guess my lesson that I'd like to really talk about is be open to possibilities. So, right, we just came from this whole journey about knowing what it is that you want. I knew that I wanted to transition into the tech space. I wanted to also, like Fallon mentioned, be in a position where I could be remote, because I started to feel very stagnant being in the office, working, traditional 9 to 5. And I wanted to meet people that I would never be able to meet. And I just felt like the tech industry would really afford me those opportunities. Now I have, like I said, our community is international. So I'm able to interact with people from Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Europe, all across the United States. And that's really amazing. But I almost cut myself and sold myself short by, I almost missed this opportunity. And that's because my background, along with being in PR, was heavily in event planning. So when I was looking for jobs, I just did the normal thing that I would, usually do. And I looked for positions in event management. And I actually came across one at HashiCorp. And so I applied. And not only did I apply, but I was very intentional. I knew after researching the company and looking at the principles that this company speaks to me. I'm totally in alignment. Like, I have to be in this company. So what did I do? I stalked Fallon. I jumped right into her DMs on LinkedIn and was like, hey, like, this position definitely speaks to me. I love the company. Would you be willing to meet with me to discuss this position? And she said yes. And we set up our initial call. And it was for a position on the events and experiential team. And Fallon was she was so open, just like she just spoke. She was so open and encouraging, and gave me a lot of tidbits about, what I could be thinking about. But one thing that she said was, I'm not going to hire you for this role. Like, you have great skills. I'm not going to hire you for this role, but I do think after talking to you that you might be better fit on another team, and I have this other role. And so when she started to explain to me about community manager, I was like, absolutely. Like, I can totally do this. This is actually more in alignment with what I want to be doing, because it's more engagement. It's just connecting with people from across the globe. And that's really what I want to do. Like, I want to run programs that can connect people and unite people via tech, right? With Terraform and Boundary and all of the other things that HashiCorp has going on. I can do this, and not only can I do this, but I can rock this, right? And I almost lost out for an opportunity because I was so incredibly, I just looked through a funnel for one type of event. So I would say, if I could give, a lesson, it's just to be open to possibilities, to join communities, to learn different things about different types of positions that are out there. I don't think that I would have necessarily looked at community manager and applied on my own. I'm so thankful that I asked the question of, hey, would you be willing to meet with me? And that I did get paired with Fallon, who I can't sing her praises enough, how amazing she is. Because she is, but that somebody would take the time to just explain to me how your skill set might be better here. And I feel like I'm actually, for the first time, thriving. I completely love my team. And I love so many of the other teams that I meet within HashiCorp, but I also can't sing the praises enough of our HashiCorp community. I love meeting people who are using our tools and our products, who are sharing their knowledge, whether it's in the HashiCorp user groups or our conferences or Hashi Talks, which is another program that I run. I love that we enable the community to do things, and that we really are about knowledge sharing. So I'm going to pass this on, or I'll take any questions if there are any, but just to sum up, just remember to be open to possibilities, because you might be able to get to somewhere that would really make you feel as successful as you possibly can. And it might be something that you not necessarily would have thought of. So thank you so much for listening to my little tidbits of how I got started at HashiCorp and how I look forward to continuing to grow here.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh, Jasmine, I love the story so much. You know, it's funny when originally this idea sparked, because Fallon and I were discussing it. It was actually your story in that kind of served as the blossoming of this turning into something bigger, because it was such a unique path. And it excited us. We're like, yeah, we got to get out there and talk about that, because from at the beginning when we were looking at it, I was like, yeah, repurposing these particular skills. But had you not been open to possibilities, we wouldn't be working together, and I wouldn't be able to tell you terrible jokes all the time. Just curious, was this the first time in your career where that you'd seen that principle really play out for you, that piece of advice, or had that been something that had either been an issue for you in the past or something you've done frequently in the past?
Yeah, no, I have always been, I love lists as well. And, I love research, right? So I will look at, okay, if I do this, it's going to take me here, and then it's going to take me here. So I wanted to be an event planner, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. And then kind of got, I can be honest, just a little bored with it. And then COVID happened. So I was like, how can I enjoy connecting with people, and I enjoy providing them opportunities to just implore their knowledge, right? I love this knowledge sharing thing. So if I had not been open to this opportunity, I wouldn't have gotten there. But prior to that, I always looked at, okay, first you need to be a coordinator, then you need to be a planner, then you need to be a manager. And so there was this hierarchy there. And this was the first time that I listened to someone, and I trusted that myself, my own skills, that I can actually do this. I'm going to learn regardless. Now I'm trying to learn about Terraform more, because since the community is so excited about it, like I'm really excited. And so now I need to know, how can I actually put this into application? But it's just been a great experience thus far.
Yeah, well, you could get a HashiCorp certification voucher. Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. We had some questions about that. After the panelists go, we'll tell you how to go about doing that. I do have a question from the audience that I do want to drop that I think will be pretty good. But before I do, anyone else have any questions for Jasmine here?
Yeah, I mean, a big question from my perspective as a recruiter, and receiving a message from you and then responding and connecting with you in today's market, as we see with many layoffs, and us recruiters, we're receiving so many messages. Is there another way that you could help others like reach out, or what is your perspective? Like if you were on the market right now, how else would you reach out? And I could share from my perspective too. Like I love Twitter. Twitter is my newspaper in the morning. I'm laying in bed and I'm on Twitter. I will source and look for developer advocates if we're hiring any here at HashiCorp on Twitter. I will work with hiring managers and see if they have handles, and we'll dig in that aspect. But I just want to know, like, Jasmine, what if I didn't answer you on LinkedIn? What would we have done from there?
I looked up so many of the HashiCorp programs, and I'm not just saying this because I'm the community manager now. Like for you, it's Twitter. For me, it became Slack, right? Twitter also. I actually reached out to oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name, but he's a tech recruiter, and he prepares you on different positions within the tech industry, right? And so I did reach out to him to connect with him as well. The other thing is I'm part of so many groups on Slack or LinkedIn or Meetup where I can talk to people who are actually in the industry, right? Who are doing this on a regular day basis, because sometimes there are positions that are not posted. But if I know someone and they are looking to hire someone on their team, and the fact that I have that network, right? It just makes it a little bit more personable to get actual real-time advice from people who are working in these places. So that's another thing that I would say. And I will, because I am the community manager, plug the HashiCorp user groups again, but there's also like 3 Baja. I was part of Blacks in Tech. There's, different communities like that. Join communities because they will absolutely help you on your journey.
Thank you for that.
That foreshadows further. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions before I get our audience question answered here? No. Okay. So this is a pretty fun question because it's gonna make y'all laugh the minute you see it, which is from Samantha Driver here. What's the journey like learning the tech lingo?
Google, I first of all, I Google everything. And I also, when I don't go to Google, I go to TikTok. I am asking people on the side, like, what does this mean? And I know internally we have our own lingo. I'm still on that journey, learning the tech lingo. What I will say about being on this journey is I'm actually amazed by how nice and gracious people are, no matter what your level are. They're always willing to educate you and help you to learn things. So just ask, you ask, keep a journal, keep notes, write things down, because eventually it will start to really stick.
Nice. Okay, and for anyone who's just joining in, we will be doing a good, nice summary of all of our points at the end. So everyone will kind of give the recap here. Thank you, Jasmine, and thanks, Fallon, for chiming in. We've kind of touched on some of the stuff that I think we'll get to hear from our next panelist here, which is going to be Val. So Val, would you like to hop on camera here and introduce yourself?
Yeah, can you see me?
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hi. Yeah, hi, I'm Val. So I am definitely going to be kind of piggybacking off the same idea as Jasmine here, because my lesson that I've got is to be open to paths that you did not expect. For me, this is because I've learned that there are just so many disciplines inside software engineering that most people don't even realize exist. I thought it meant one thing. I thought there was only one way to be an engineer, right? And what it took to be an engineer or whatever. And there's so many like different skill sets and different backgrounds that people can have that they can succeed in tech with. Like, it's funny. I have a Japanese degree. I did not go to school for computer science. And the funny thing is I actually took a computer science class while I was in university because I knew that I was kind of interested in it. Like, oh, what if I learned how to, build something with tech or whatever? It sounds really fun. I knew that there was a lot of like learning behind it, which sounded fun to me. But then I took the class and I don't know if it was imposter syndrome or what, but I got really freaked out by kind of the mathy vibe behind it. I was always terrible at math growing up. And I ended up withdrawing from the course thinking like, oh no, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do this like tech thing ever, And it's just so funny because I have this big old W now on my transcript from school for Computer Science 101. And then, here I am, a software developer today. I didn't realize, that like there's more to it than, I don't even use math in my job at all. Like that's not even really a thing. Like unless you're like the people who are, some software developers do use math, right? But they're like the ones working on like, ML algorithms or whatever, like, but I'm not doing that in my day-to-day job. And so, I didn't realize like that the things that I do get excited about, like learning new things, that's something I really love doing, being creative, that all of those were actually super important skills for being a software developer. And so it wasn't until like, I took a break from exploring that and I just did my Japanese degree and I went and I taught English in Japan. And then when I came back, I actually got a job I just, with my teaching experience, was the only qualification I had at this little startup that was teaching computer programming fundamentals to kids in after school programs using Scratch, which is like MIT's little drag and drop programming language. And, you know, my boss was like, well, you don't know how to program yet, but it's fine. You know how to teach. So I think that'll work. Right. And I found like, you know, oh, this is more creative than I thought. You know, even I'm not typing the code out, I'm like drag and dropping it, but I am using that problem solving process. And I was finding it to be kind of fun because it was approached in like not a mathy way for me. And I thought that was awesome. And so then it's just like such serendipity. I discovered Ada Developers Academy, which is a tuition-free, like year-long boot camp kind of thing that is for women and like non-binary and gender expansive folks that are looking to transition careers into the software development field. And it's just like, it just happened to be in Seattle. They've expanded now. They have online schools and schools in Atlanta and stuff as well. But at the time it was just Seattle where I happened to live. And I was like, wow, this is amazing that this happens to be available for me. And so I applied and I got in, and you know, I had that imposter syndrome still, and I wasn't sure if this was the path I wanted, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to be open. I'm just going to try it out. And part of the being open stuff, it was important even within that too. Like, okay, I'd made the decision that I was going to go into software development. I was in this school, right? But then while I was in the school, like I didn't know what kind of fields, you know, what kind of domains were available in software development as a career. Like like many people, the word app or programming or whatever to me just meant like, oh, a phone, like an app on my phone or like some website. Like I thought that mobile developer and website developer were like the only kind of thing that you could be, you know, or do. And then I remember, it was so funny. I remember there was someone who came in and gave a talk to all of us students at Ada about DevOps tooling and like, you know, DevOps stuff, containers, Kubernetes, these big scary words that I remember thinking like, oh, I have no idea what they're talking about. Clearly that's not for me. I don't know what that is. You know, I'm definitely more of a, once again, I was pigeonholing myself. I said, okay, I'm going to be a mobile developer or a front-end developer because I don't know what those big scary words mean. It sounds hard, you know? And then it turns out, so Ada gives you a internship for 6 months at a company, and where I was at, they actually kind of had me working with these DevOps kind of concepts and tools and Kubernetes and things like that. And I actually ended up using a bunch of HashiCorp tools and learning those while I was there, like Terraform and Vault. And now it's just so funny that I was like, you know, oh, I'm definitely not going to do that. That sounds so scary. And now here I am working for HashiCorp, you know, working for a DevOps tooling company, and I love it. And it's just so funny. It's like, ironically, like I left my previous job right before this because I didn't feel like I knew what I was building there, because it was like immunology science stuff that I didn't know. But now here I am working on Vault, which, like, you know, if I had asked myself way back then, like, what do you think you're going to be doing as a software developer? I never would have said like, you know, this kind of like developer operational, you know, security kind of stuff, right? It's like, now this is my comfort zone. What happened? Never would have expected it. So yeah, I think that the action to take away here is just like, probably just get your hands dirty and then like try to build something, and then just try to explore different things there. Because you might find that like in the process of like building something that there are parts of the process that are more interesting to you than you first expected. Don't pigeonhole yourself into who you think you are and what you're doing. And you might find you can use your unique skills like in lots of different domains that you don't even know about inside software. Like for me, I didn't realize that I could use I kind of have like in my opinion, a good eye for like user experience and kind of like what products people would like to use and things like that. And I didn't think I'd be able to utilize that when I'm just writing like backend APIs and cloud platforms and things like that. But I've totally been doing that at HashiCorp, and it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome, Val. I imagine you looking at the tip of the iceberg, saying, I'm going to dive right in, and then getting under and not only seeing the entire world of tech, but the entire world of software engineering, and then the entire world of DevOps. And my goodness, you still kept eating away at that. That's awesome. Now you're in Vault. Oh my gosh, it's so, what a technical product. What a swing and a pivot. That's
Yeah, so-
that's great.
And I was gonna mention also that I think HashiCorp has a few ADA interns right now too. So shout out to more ADA people in the mix.
In fact, I kind of want to run like this up. You know, we have our corporate recruiter on here with us. You know, her lesson here of you know not limiting yourself to one thing and looking at all these other different paths. How do you see that play out with candidates that come through?
I was really going to ask Val, like, whenever you saw something so complex, whenever you started seeing our tools, when you were at Ada and started using HashiCorp tools, you didn't understand them. Who were your champions? Who were your outlets to help you understand those? Because like now we have our Ada interns here, and if things are complex to them, who should they reach out to? Who should be their champions, other than the manager that they're under right now as interns? Like, what would you suggest for them?
Right, totally. Yeah, and in my first internship, you know, I feel like, oh, so easy in person because I had like people next to me that I could just ask for help or whatever. But in, you know, being in a fully remote company now with HashiCorp, you know, even now, you know, no matter how far along in your learning journey you get, there's always things you don't know. And so building the skill of just asking people, you know, and, you know, like asking for help, it's not a bad thing. We all have to do it at all levels of software development. You know, I even get questions on a daily basis from like the highest, you know, principal engineer, right, that is working with us. And like he has questions for me. We all have different, you know, levels of knowledge, and it's totally okay to ask. You know, you have expertise that someone else doesn't have, and it's okay to share those things back and forth. And so, yeah, it's just becoming more comfortable, I think, with asking questions to.
Do you have your work on GitHub?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have your work on GitHub?
I do. I definitely am not like as good about just like, oh, constantly working on personal projects and like putting it on, you know, GitHub, you know, like I should or whatever. But I don't know, when there's something that seems like, oh, a lot of people could benefit from this, you know, I have in the past put a couple things here and there on GitHub that other people have, you know, downloaded and used.
Yeah, I think working as a tech recruiter and then shifting over as a corporate group recruiter, I miss going into GitHub. So I love working with the DevRel team because I'll dig into GitHub links and see projects and share those projects. But I think that from my perspective, that's a great place to add your public work that you can share from anybody from intern all the way up to principals, managers. Wink, wink, Brandon.
Yeah, totally. I was just going to add to that, like, you know, whether you end up like publishing it on GitHub or whatever is one thing, but like just actually part of the whole get your hands dirty, like the act of actually trying to build something and make it and put it on GitHub, like that's actually how you level up as an engineer. I feel like more than just reading and trying to like learn from YouTube videos. Like I do a little bit of, you know, reading docs and doing things like that, but sometimes it's like you just got to get started and just start building something in order to actually like learn. And I find that to be true for many people. So yeah, just try things.
Thank you, Val. That's awesome. Thank you for the added perspective and question as well, Fallon. All right, so I believe it is time for Brandon. Brandon, can we hear your wonderful story? And we'll put your face up here on screen.
Hello, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Brandon Hayes. I'm a senior manager here. I manage the Terraform core team, and I've been at HashiCorp a couple of years. And my lesson is to find your people, your community, your friends, because, well, Fallon is going to love this, actually. There's a lot of crying involved. And 20 years ago, I was broke. I was married. I had to drop out of college to try to focus on figuring out how to earn enough money to pay rent. And I was realizing that English Lit wasn't really going to cut it for me. And about 10 years into that writing career, I was writing content for a living, watching my whole industry kind of crumble underneath me. Everybody was starting to write for SEO, and I was still broke. And I would sit in these job interviews where people would say, why would I hire you as a writer when I could hire a dozen college students for $5 an hour to write SEO content? And today that would probably be Chat GPT or something. And I was feeling pretty lost at the time. And kind of like Val, I thought programming at the time was for math majors, but somebody told me I should check it out. And I'd never really even opened the terminal on my computer before. And I told the CTO at the startup I was at the time that I was unhappy, a little feeling curious about programming, but not necessarily feeling like it might be for me. And he fired up an interactive Ruby shell using the Ruby programming language at the time and started playing with creating this like little Pokemon setup with little animals just in text that would battle with each other. And they had stat points and power and all this stuff. And I was just stunned. I was like, you can just do this. You can just make things happen. It was like magic. And he handed me a programming book that day and said, you'll know within a couple of weeks whether or not this is for you or not. And I was like, okay, well, I'm game to try it. And I came in the next day and I was just like on fire. I was like, you get paid to do this? And he was like, I know, it's like a total scam. And from that point forward, I just consumed books on books on books. And I would study. I had a new baby at the time, and I would study and take the late shift and stay up till 2 a.m. watching the baby, and then would switch off. I knew exactly what the hell I wanted. And I had a mantra. I was like, paid to code, paid to code, paid to code. How do I get paid to code? And like things are today, it was kind of a down market at the time, and opportunities seemed pretty few and far between, maybe even out of reach. And like Val said, actually, one of my friends pulled me aside and said, that's enough books, actually. You need to get your hands dirty. And I fully endorse that. I think that's actually really an important piece of this. Is one of my friends that had introduced me said, time to get out of books and get into code. And I started writing things and publishing them to GitHub. And then at one point, a friend encouraged me to attend a Ruby programmer meetup about a half-hour drive out. And the idea seemed ludicrous to me. Like, why would people go talk about the thing they do for work after work? That doesn't, I mean, I like programming, sure, but like, really? And I went, and all the technology and all the terminology and all the tools seemed way over my head, and I really couldn't keep up. But what stuck with me is these people were so excited by the same thing I was excited about. And it felt bad not to know enough to contribute back. And I wondered whether or not it was really for me. I decided, by the encouragement of a friend, to try again. And I started attending these meetups and conferences. And it felt so difficult and scary and intimidating at the time. But I started striking up conversations with people, and I made some friends who ended up wishing me success. And I met one person in particular, a person named Dave Brady, who he labeled me as his marketing frenemy, because you shouldn't trust marketers. And that's probably still true. But as we got to know each other, he took me under his wing, and he pointed out, he's like, I think you're actually a senior developer that just needs to finish learning to code. Because he taught me the idea that a senior developer isn't just how skilled you are at programming. And he and I pair programmed pretty often. And some of the people that I started meeting started referring me to job interviews. And I'll never forget a job interview I had with a company called Pivotal Labs, great company. They asked me, a brand new Ruby programmer, to build a set class in Java with them in a pair programming exercise. And I fumbled through the best way I could. And at the end, he's like, yeah, that's going to be a no from us, dog. And it was like almost those words. It was real tough. And I was so embarrassed and so upset. And I called my friend Dave, and I was just sobbing. I'm just like tears streaming down my face. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he laughed, and I was so mad. He's like, I'm like, why are you laughing? And he said, oh man, the blow-in interview, that's a rite of passage. Congratulations. Welcome, man. Like, you're here. You started your career. I was still discouraged, but I didn't give up because somebody was there to pick me up. And at this point, my confidence is not great, but I'm still going to these meetups. And I went to a startup one with a friend of mine named JT. JT pointed to the speaker, who was like the sponsor of that event, and said, you've been saying paid to code for like 6 months. This is about a year and a half into my journey. And he's like, you've been saying this for like 6 months. You go up there, that guy says, hi, I pay people to code. You go walk up to him and talk to him. And I was feeling like a schlub. I was so embarrassed. People don't know this about me, but I'm actually pretty shy, especially in larger groups. And I'm in this jeans and a hoodie, and I walk up to this guy in a business suit, and I was like, introduce myself. And I was like, hey, I'm looking to break into programming. And he said, oh, we'll call you. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I got a call from their CTO the next day and interviewed there. And the very short version is the rest is history. Like, I got my first job in tech, finally broke in, and it does. The degree of difficulty goes down significantly after you land your first job. It was a real tough journey to get there. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of late nights and challenging myself to learn, but there was also a lot of privilege there. People assuming I belonged in places that I was, and a lot of luck just being in the right place at the right time. But even with all those advantages, I can't imagine a universe in which I had done that alone. And that's the lesson. Find your people. They will challenge you. They will challenge you to embarrass yourself, which is an absolute prerequisite of this. You're going to get your heart broken, I promise. My advice is the same as it was 10 years ago to people, and it's that breaking into tech sucks, and I'm sorry. I don't think anybody ever forgets what it feels like to be on the outside of something looking in, like real Little Mermaid vibes. But even Ariel had friends who encouraged her. So how do you find that community? I just start with the word community and work your way out from there. Like, who do you know that knows somebody that's really into a thing and is active in a community around it? We're, multiple times today, we've mentioned the hugs. Like, wow, what a great place to start. You are going to have to play the role of extrovert, even if you're an introvert. If that's not you, it's not me either. That's okay. Just build yourself in some recovery time. Grit your teeth. This is actually too important to sit out. You have to jump in. And then how will you know when you found your people? You know they're your people when you can call them crying after a job interview that went bad. You know they're your people that if they are celebrating your successes with you, they'll make introductions for you. They'll take risks on you. They're your people if they call you out on your BS and expect you to be the best version of yourself. It's more than networking. It's assembling a team of lifelong friends who are rooting for you and bringing out the best in you. And now I get to manage engineers and help other people live their own best story. And I love what I do. I co-host a management podcast with a couple of peers who over the last 5 years we've pushed each other, we've taught each other, we've sharpened each other and lifted each other, and we've cried together. And now my journey has brought me here to HashiCorp, and I'm really happy here. What drew me here was that it was more people than technology. Several of the people who supported me over the last 10 years were here. The smartest and kindest people I knew worked at HashiCorp. A person I admire a lot named Paul Hinsey reached out a couple of years ago to talk about an opportunity here for this team. And now I work with the absolute most amazing people. I get to do great work and enjoy the people I work with. HashiCorp feels like a lot like a magnet school for kind and curious, highly skilled people who challenge me to do my best work and then support me when I need help. So I don't think there's anything super noteworthy about my story, except I was really lucky, but I want you, if you're trying to do this, to make it through this rough part so that you can tell your own story, which is probably more compelling than mine. I'm asking you to think of who your people are right now. And if you're struggling to think of those, I'm asking you to push past that fear and go find them. So that's my lesson. Go find your people. If you're trying to break in, it's tough. The only way to win is to not give up. And for me, the only reason I didn't give up is because I had friends who wouldn't let me. So thanks for letting me share my story.
Yes, that was awesome, Brandon. Thank you so much for sharing that. Go find your people, the accountability, the networking, all of it. I mean, the emotional support. God, I loved every bit of that. That was fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing, because it was also personal. And of course, every panelist was given this perspective, and it was great. So let me begin as I have, Fallon. So go find your people, right? Obviously, we've heard components of this in both your story and in Val's and in Jasmine's, whether or not it's been explicitly called out. But how does this play out from a recruitment standpoint when you're looking through candidates? Is it very obvious when they've found their people?
One thing is, I mean, internally, whenever we have applicants, looking at those referrals and seeing like somebody out there is advocating for HashiCorp, but then also that person that's advocating for HashiCorp is advocating for new talent. That is a huge, huge insight to one landing a position anywhere. I was going to piggyback off of like, if Jasmine didn't get a hold of me, would she have found another person at HashiCorp to reach out and then probably came in as a referral? That's one way to navigate as an applicant out there on the market. Also want to piggyback to the first question that we got asked earlier and kind of hone in on the meetups with Brandon is how can you learn like the tech language? And I was going to advise that person, like, look up your local meetups or virtual meetups that you could be a part of. But also, Brandon, I wanted you to be able to expand more. And like, if people don't know what meetups are or what hugs are, like, can we emphasize that for those that are listening right now to kind of help them understand more of how they can get involved? And then that's another way of learning technical acumen. I used to go to meetups and eat pizza and sit there with SREs and machine learning engineers and be like, what the heck are they talking about? Brown bag series. And I learned so much eating so much pizza over my time. And so, but that was my local meetups. But I want to hear more from Brandon and Jasmine as well.
I'll go first. I really, I got so into the meetup aspect, and I got so sick of pizza, and that I realized I could run my own meetups, and I can order tacos. And so I'm a taco meetup person now. But yeah, if the community doesn't exist for you, you can actually start one. There's no laws saying you can't do that. So that's one suggestion. And but I was fortunate in that, I knew people who knew people at the time, and I don't think there was as big a community around it. And I think really find the closest thing you can to something that you're interested in, and then I promise you will find that it's like the internet, where you will find that linking to something else, to something else, to something else. I meet people that work with me here, and they're like, "No, Brandon, I know you because you used to run the meetup here in Austin." And I used to come to that meetup, and I'm like, oh, I thought you were familiar. Like, it will chain together, and you will find, if your exact people aren't, or exact interest isn't in the one place, just find that first place. And I promise there will be like a list of other things that these same people are into, and it will help you navigate, but you got to bootstrap somewhere.
Yeah, I can also comment that, so Ruby was my first programming language as well. That's what they used to teach at Ada. And I remember going to the Ruby meetups, kind of like what you're talking about, and people were really, really friendly and open toward beginners and inclusive and everything there. And I really appreciated that. And so, there's like people, if you're just hanging out online all the time, you might see a lot of toxicity as the internet tends to produce, right? In certain online communities that might feel more exclusive, right? And so just trying to find communities that are positive and excited about, building you up and helping you get there is important.
Yep. And I would piggyback to all of this. HashiCorp user groups are a great way to do that. I'm sitting here listening to Brandon's story. I'm like, yes, this is exactly the vibe that we have. Like, we all just get together, we eat whatever it is, whether it's pizza, or we just have one in San Francisco not too long ago where we did order burritos and they were a hit. So I'm totally feeling you on the burrito taco vibes. But this is where you get to meet people and learn exactly what happens, within their organizations. Of course, we're going to talk about HashiCorp, and I can't sing its praises enough. Brandon, when you talked just briefly about how you have this community where you can share your tears when you do get those rejections, which can be hard. I just want to share that I was able to share my tears with Fallon actually when I got hired. So Fallon, I'm telling all of our business now, but this is exactly why communities are so important, because you just are able to have that human level with people who can relate to you. And it's really important.
I was trying so hard not to cry this time, and I haven't yet.
I have cried during the middle of 2 coding interviews now. It's just, coding interviews are rough.
I want people to understand, when you're moving forward to technical assessments, it might be complex, but be open to asking questions too, so that you don't get into that roadblock and you fearful of asking a question, and then you're crying, and then now it's all recorded and you have everybody there. It's just talk about what's on your mind during those assessments. And if anything, reach out to all of us here if you need any advice on those assessments. Val, I'm gonna volunteer you, Brandon, Cole, your background as well. If anybody wants to reach out and just see how can you overcome that fear of when screen sharing your tech assessment. You might cry, you might get mad, you might get aggravated. You can't even speak because you're introverted at this time and you're stuck on the syntax. Just take a breather and remember there's somebody that is champion for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We got a lot of great feedback, and I love how it sort of wrapped up. Every one of these builds on each other. They're all related, right? And that makes it it makes remembering all of it a lot easier. And just with this one, if everyone's doing the same thing, going in the same direction with you, it's really easy to just keep going. Yeah. Cool. Well, do we have anything else before we move forward? I think? No? Okay, awesome. Gotcha. All right. Well, we got one more panelist, and unfortunately, it's me. And unfortunately, there's no way it's going to live up to what we've heard from the other 4 panelists. Just it's such good advice. And again, thank you all. But I'll try my best here. So can we throw me up here on there I am. Okay, now I've transformed. Yes. So just because it's been a bit, and again, thank you everyone for speaking, telling your stories. I'm Cole Morrison, as my name says here. I'm a developer advocate at HashiCorp. And prior to this, I ran a DevOps education platform that's actually still live. And prior to that, it was all startups, mainly engineering. And the lesson that I want to impart upon you today is to make your work public. We've heard this in and out many times from everyone's things, right? But this makes your capabilities and your talents unquestionable. It makes everything easier, y'all. Like whether you're an entrepreneur, a consultant, contractor, or employee, if there's a tangible representation of your skill and knowledge for people to look at, it just makes everything easier. So why was this important to me? Well, just to rewind some, like everyone else here, my background was not I guess it was kind of related, but it wasn't in tech. It wasn't, let alone engineering. It was in marketing and economics. And I actually got my start into technology adjacent through design. My senior year in college, me and my buddy decided to start our own business, which was a fancy way of saying that we were going to freelance together. We got our first contract making a pamphlet for an RV security system. I remember strutting into my marketing classes like, I know everything. Y'all don't know nothing. And I got paid $60. Unfortunately, the value of those contracts never increased. But what we did learn was that, hey, there's all these higher level contracts for coding, for development. Specifically for app and web development. You know, this rolling back the time, this was 2010, 2011. This is the first iPad had just dropped. Ryan Dahl had just introduced Node.js. You know, everyone didn't know which way we were going to go. Were web apps the way? Were mobile apps the way? How did the marketplace look? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to bet on the web development technologies. I'm going to make myself learn those. And I'd tried this before. It had failed spectacularly. And I needed a way to make sure that it actually worked. I was like, I got to make sure that I learn this and love it. Unlike Brandon, who he went into it, and I would say somewhat unlike Val, who went into it and they just sort of picked it up. I wasn't as akin to it. So I wanted to sort of hack my brain. And I had heard about this psychologist named Ivan Pavlov who'd gotten his dog to love a bell by associating with food. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat whenever I'm learning to code and try to hack my brain to really love this. So for the next 6 months, I went down this extreme rabbit hole where I was gobbling up every code, tutorial, book, video course that I could find, while also gobbling up any snacks, candies, or meals that I could have at the time. And let's just say my health during that time wasn't the best, but it worked. I got through. I learned everything. And whatever your perceptions are about web development technologies, mine are relatively gourmet, I guess. Like, come on, web cookies. You think we all know what we think, but like I actually think of cookies. So there's that. Anyhow, this led to the first time that make your work public really vibed with me. It was less obvious though from an individual level, because at the time we only had our works up on just like public websites using templates and things like that. But we went to town, we developed our own website, put it up there, put in all the bells and whistles, animations, made it. If any of you remember the times of Internet Explorer 6 through 8, plus 9, plus Opera, plus Chrome, plus Firefox, plus all the other things, we had it working on everything. And that took us to a different level. We went from making tens of dollars to hundreds to then thousands, and things started to get a lot more consistent. And the reason I say it was less obvious is because when you are a consultant or you're running your own business, it's obvious. It's like, of course I need to do that. But once you start working somewhere, if it's not tied directly to your bottom line, it can kind of elude you a bit. But anyhow, that was sort of the first time this lesson hit me, was right here when I was running my own things. But eventually we got the opportunity to design the personal blog for one of the Techstars co-founders. And that really kicked off got my foot in the door into tech in general. We got a lot bigger opportunities. And after one of my startups spectacularly failed, I got a stable gig, and suddenly my time opened up a lot more. And I started considering blogging for the first time for a few reasons. One, I felt like I had a lot to share, because at the time, a lot of the tech resources in the web dev space, they weren't the best, especially considering how fast it was moving. There weren't a lot of paths from non-traditional into tech and engineering. Like we've talked about boot camps, but at the time, this was around 2014, they were out there, but they weren't as well received and as vetted as they are now. And then I also had this thought from my mentor, which was, hey, imagine if you put out an article every 2 weeks, every month, and you compounded that over a year, 2 years. What would that do for your career? Well, you'd be positioned as an expert, right? And what would be positioned, if you were positioned as an expert, what would that do for you? I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I went and I put together my first blog. I was such an engineering mindset. I decided to develop it myself versus using WordPress, using some open source beta framework. It's still running on that. I have no idea how to upgrade it. And I got it up and I went to search for my first topic. And if any of you all have ever done this, you've got all this energy until you get up there and you're like, yeah, I don't know what to put now. Nothing seems original anymore. You write out stuff and it all sounds like crap. But I wanted to do something very personal. I wanted to do something that went to the reasons why I started it. And to me, the most difficult part was the learning the technology aspect. But there were a lot of tutorials out there. I'd planned to do that, but I wanted something a little bit more soft. And by that, I mean like a soft skill and something that really had supercharged my process and my path getting there. And I thought back to those 6 months that summer of going through all of those coding tutorials and eating. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to make my first post about eating while you code. And I came up with this super, super self-important title. In fact, you know what? I've got the blog post right here. I'm going to just put the link up for everyone so you can see it. Put it up. And the title was Pavlovian Approach to Learning Code. I was so proud of that title. I was like, this is it. This is it. This is great. And the first paragraph read as follows 9 years ago. So when I say function, what do you think of? Because I think of pretzels, chips and salsa, pasta, and well, my mouth starts to salivate. Strings, variables, arrays, and objects, they just make me think, yummy. I bolded the paragraph. It's like, this is it. I like snapped it. If you look through the article here, I think there's one real paragraph. One real paragraph wasn't the best thing, but to me, this was the genesis of my voice. I was like, this is wonderful. I got to share this with the world. This has to go out there. What can I do to supercharge this? I should post it to Reddit. That's exactly what I should do. What could go right? What could go right? I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Learn Programming subreddit. This is 9 years ago. So Reddit's big, but it's not huge. And I'm going to put my thoughts out there. And of all things, I'm going to put it on my personal Reddit account as well, with my name right there in the URL. And I put it up there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to come back tomorrow and we'll check it. Now, if any of you all have ever posted to Reddit, you know how this usually goes. Either you get a couple snarky comments and nothing, or the moderator removes what you put for absolutely no reason. But instead, I get up the next morning, I open my browser with hesitation, I look on the subreddit, and it is at the top. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? It's got hundreds of upvotes. It's got hundreds of comments. I am freaking out. I'm like grinning ear to ear. I'm like, I knew it. I was right. This is it. I knew that this was going to work. And I go and I click into comments. And I'm going to just post the Reddit thread on YouTube and LinkedIn that everyone can check out. And I read the very first comment, and my face slowly melts from happiness and accomplishment to the need to vehemently defend myself. And I'll let y'all read what the very first comment was. Let's just say that it was upvoted so much, less because they thought the lesson was good advice and more because I believe they thought it was satire. The majority of the discussion was questioning my general health. Now, to this day, I'm still not sure if the funniest part was, the thought that I thought that this was a great idea, or that I felt the need, if you look at my comments, to defend myself. It's like, no, I am healthy. Like, this didn't have a negative impact on my health. Yeah, so I would love to read through some of those, but I'll let y'all look through those yourselves. Somehow, this did not stop me from writing and putting my stuff out there. Somehow, I guess it was just kind of a balance. It still kind of worked out. And you can troll my Reddit history through there, but I continued to do that all the way up to the present. If you look through all of my posts, past 9 years, I've always been making something. Obviously, I didn't just post to Reddit. I put it out everywhere that I could find. And it had a profound impact on every single thing that I did, whether it was an interview, a client, whether it was trying to get customers from our learning platform. Having this work out there, always putting myself out there, made it much easier for people to make the decision. And sure, I got a lot of downloads. I got a lot of silence on social media. I got a lot of rejection. I got a lot of, hey, you're stupid, right? It can be difficult to throw yourself out there. But the reality is that it helped more than it hurt. And one of the hardest job interviews I ever did was in a startup created by one of the co-founders of BigCommerce. And aside from the interview process being grueling, when I got through the hiring team, they just straight up told me, like, this was easy. It was a no-brainer. We know you know how to work in the technologies because you've got the code there. You've got the blog post there. So we know that it's there. So that is my far less heartfelt lesson than the rest of them. But it is to make your work public, because it's going to require putting yourself out there. But if you are your own business, and you should be marketing yourself. And this is going to go a very long way towards it. So now I get to revert back to my my MC role here and ask Fallon. Like, so tell me, through the eyes of recruiting, how does this play out for candidates?
My mind is spinning. One, I want you to share all of the different facets, tools, platforms that can be public. But I also want to friendly remind anybody that wants to add anything to their resumes, PDF files when you apply are the best way to apply. And then linking everything to all of your public tooling platforms, whatever you're wanting to share. But Cole, I want to know, like, where else, what and where can people share all of their public information?
Yeah, the real big thing is, the way that I always see it is your content that you put out there. It's kind of like a bonfire. You set it out and people will gather to you. And it's kind of almost a way to create a community in and of itself. You put your voice out there, you're going to attract people, well, that either don't like you or people that very much like you. So you kind of get this polarized side. To me, especially at the time, and I don't know how much weight it holds nowadays, it was just my own blog and my own domain, because having your presence and your reputation dependent upon a platform, that can work, but you never know what that platform is going to do. You never know how it's going to change, and you never know how the developers or the owners are going to take it in a different direction. So for me, it was always begin on my own personal channels, and then from there blast them out to the usual suspects. So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, Hacker News. Those were sort of like the places that I went for news. So the thing is wherever you're going to find your information, you probably vibe with that channel. So that's usually the best place to lay your stuff down.
Another question, health related.
Oh, okay.
What was your favorite food while you were coding?
Right. So this is when I was making like $60 per contract there, despite thinking it was a great idea. So there were these like chocolate covered cookies at Walmart that I would eat so many of them. My goodness. I thought it's like, well, if I have like 5 or 6 at lunch, what's it going to matter? No, I ate a lot of chips and salsa though, Danny. I ate a lot of those. Sort of a shift between pretty much anything I could get my hands on. I wasn't picky. A lot of Wendy's. I had a lot of Wendy's.
This, Cole, one, why haven't you ever shared this story with me in general? Two, I think you saved it anyways to just blow us all away from this. Three, the fact that everything has been public for 9+ years and you were using Reddit before Reddit was even Reddit. I hope this encourages others to understand, like, whenever I'm meeting with applicants or candidates and they tell me that they, one, I found Cole Morrison on Twitter and then I went to his Reddit and so on and so forth. Then I want to know, like, how did they interact with you? Are they out there blogging as well? Are they commenting on your blogs? Those are all just like little cute little things that I like to hear from applicants in general. It's like, oh, I reached out to Cole. I found him on here. He was able to share X, Y, and Z with me. So I want to also commend you for always talking to people that reach out to you in all of those forums.
Well, thank you.
Can I just interject and say that Cole is also like a mini celebrity, but he's nice, right? Like, I've been to a few conferences with Cole and people will come up to him, just to talk about the talks that he's given. And he really just engages with people. So I promise you, he's really nice, even though he's gotten some bad feedback on Reddit. Don't let that discourage you.
Yeah, steel yourself if you're going to post your content to Reddit, and very much question whether or not you're going to use your personal account or not. Because it can be, someone behind leaving that comment, they took like maybe 5 seconds to say the snarky thing, but if you're not careful, it can really weigh on you, right? So just watch that. And as far as Fallon, why I haven't given that story out, because it took me a long time to not be embarrassed as all get out at how I wrote 9 years ago, what I thought was a good idea 9 years ago, that I, in that Reddit thread, was like mad at people and being like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is actually good advice. Like, so yeah.
Well, now that you're here at HashiCorp in public, out in the public, how are you growing? And how have you grown?
That is a great question. This is something like, not to toot the obvious horn here too much with HashiCorp. One of the things that has amazed me about the tooling that we put out is that it sits at the intersection of so many practices. When you come and you join our community, when you come and you use our tools, you're going to get exposed to every other face out there in some form or fashion. And this is going to level you up in a lot of different ways. Just on this call alone, right? We've got, like, look at the panel we have here. We're all from different backgrounds and we're all united. And I guarantee you that wherever we were beforehand, they're probably using our tools in some form or fashion. So you get a lot of opportunity for exposure. And that's been what it's for me, just sitting at that nexus.
Love it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking. Thank you and all of you for sharing. Okay, so I believe, unless there's anything else, that brings us here closer where we're going to just sort of do a summary. I know people are excited to hear about the certifications, but for anyone who's just joining in, yes, we've gone a little bit late, but is what it is. I'd like to just kind of go around and do one more summary of the lesson, one more quick 30, 50-second summary, just so that everyone who's sitting in can get a recap of what it is that they're doing. Why don't we just start in the order that we were in? So Fallon, if you wouldn't mind just recapping us and giving us that summary first.
All right. Hello again. I am Fallon Petty here on the people team on talent acquisition as a corporate group recruiter, honing in on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. My lesson is like a two-part. Know what you want and always be curious. And really that just came from like knowing what I wanted. My background was a technical recruiter previous to HashiCorp. I wanted to build out my technical acumen. I wanted to go into the tech industry and know that it lacked a woman identified voices. So I wanted to break into where that challenge was. So I was very intentional about moving into a new role, very intentional about having a remote life as well. Thank you, HashiCorp. And then ultimately, I just wanted my own personal satisfaction and fulfillment. I want to be with a brand, be with a company, immerse myself in that brand, know the people that are here, know the customers that love us, know the practitioners that love us. Now that I know what practitioners are after 1.5 years of being here. And it's really just because I said it earlier, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So I intentionally had a list, and I made a list. I wrote it out of what I wanted, what were my roadblocks at my previous employer, what was my scope of the role, and how I wanted to grow. And then I started connecting with my champions. They were my sounding board. They were the type of executive mentors to just like skip level mentors to my counterparts, helping me expand my knowledge and learning from others. And then from here, joining HashiCorp, my voice matters, my perspective matters. I have a sense of belonging. I get to be a part of like the greater talent acquisition processes of like revising and helping us scale out here at HashiCorp, and working with our leaders that are hiring and attracting talent, trying to retain the talent that we have here, working amongst, we have 2,400 plus employees here now, and everybody here is kind. Everybody has integrity. Beauty does work better when you read our principles and you see those principles. It's not something that we recite. It's something that you do feel here as a HashiCorp employee. And I always say this, and I just told my confidant this morning, I was like, I hate that I always say this, but I'm happy here. It sounds corny, but I'm happy at HashiCorp, and HashiCorp created this culture just from 10 plus years ago, whenever they were building out this entire company. And now I get to be impactful about like our D and IB efforts, and I have ownership and learning through others. Really, what's the best thing for me, and whenever I'm talking to people that want to be a part of HashiCorp, and I'm like, why do you want to be here? And they were like, well, why are you there? And I'm like, because HashiCorp is still scaling out, and I joined so that I could be part of creating like the HashiCorp legacy. With that, I'm going to pass it off.
Thank you. And that's going to take us over to Jasmine next. Give us your summary, please.
Hi, everyone, again. Thank you so much for joining. I am Jasmine White. I am the community manager here at HashiCorp. And just to recap, my lesson is to be open to all possibilities. As I mentioned before, I applied to HashiCorp for a different position because I was very headstrong on going in a very linear direction. And after having a conversation with Fallon, actually, I realized that my skill set would be better placed somewhere else. And if I hadn't been open to another possibility, if I hadn't entrusted in the skills that I had, and if I hadn't gone on a limb and put myself out there to connect with Fallon one-on-one and to just, reach out to her to ask her for a conversation. And if she hadn't been kind enough to take me up on that conversation, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I can't express how happy I am that I am able to serve as community manager at HashiCorp. So just be open to possibilities, because you never know where your success story is going to come from and where it can take you.
Thanks, Jasmine. Val, give us your summary now, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, hello again. I'm Val Conklin. I'm an engineer on the Vault team here at HashiCorp, and my lesson was to be open to paths that you didn't expect. Like, you think you know what it means to be a software developer. You think it means, oh, I'm going to write apps for people to use on their phone or their computer, but there's just so many areas of software engineering besides that. And on paper, they might sound too boring or too corporate, and you think, oh, that's never going to be my thing. DevOps tooling, what is that? That's boring sounding. But this kind of thing can actually be really fun and surprisingly use a ton of your skills that you didn't realize were going to be useful, such as empathy for developers, empathy for people, creativity, the love of learning new things that you haven't gotten to learn yet. All that stuff I get to do on a daily basis, and I really love it. So I just recommend being open to trying new things out like this. And then for the action there for you guys is to get your hands dirty and try to build something. And as you're doing that, notice the parts of the process that draw you in the most. For me, this is the part where, I'm like making a product that feels good to use. And just realize that there's just so many different parts of tech where you can kind of use those skills of yours and do those parts that you find that you like. and that you can totally be a developer and bring your skills to the table. You don't need to have a mathy background or whatever, like I thought you had to have, those are just stereotypes, and there's so many things that you can do. And places like HashiCorp, I think, make it really easy to do that because the people are very welcoming and inclusive, and I don't know, just lots of people working on great things here. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's going to take us over to Brandon.
Hi again. I'm Brandon Hayes, Senior Manager for the Terraform Core team here at HashiCorp. And my lesson is to go find your people, to find your community. As a reminder, about 12 years ago, I found myself at the dead end of a career that didn't make me happy. And after a coworker introduced me to programming, I fell in love with it as a creative pursuit. And I lucked into finding a community of friends to cheer me on for the 2 years that I was trying to find that first job. I almost gave up a number of times, especially after crashing and burning in some interviews. But the community that I'd formed around me and found kept pushing me to stick with it until I finally broke through. And my advice for people trying to break into tech is to put in the effort and push past the fear to find that community. Actively seek out communities of people who are where you want to be. Relationships are a foundational element of your early career, not just in taking risks on you, but acting as your support structure during the most difficult phase of your new career. And as I read in some of the comments earlier, in pushing you to be the best version of yourself, even better than you know you can be. Please attend a hug, find a meetup, introduce yourself, even start a meetup. You'll be surprised at who shows up.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And then last, I'll just give my quick summary here. Waiting for myself to grow upon the screen to become bigger. There I am. Hey everyone, I'm Morrison, developer advocate here at HashiCorp. My lesson for you is to make your work public. When you do this, you have irrefutable proof of your expertise, credibility, and authenticity. When companies or clients consider you for candidacy, they can put your name into a search engine and see all of the wonderful works and projects that you've created. All the path to partnering up is shortened. So go make a blog post, publish it, go make a video, release it, go make a project on GitHub and share it. Make your skills and your expertise tangible, make your work public. All right, so thank you, everyone. Let's bring us all back on screen. Before we let you go, we're going to point you to how a couple things. First up is for those of you interested in getting HashiCorp certified. If I can have, we have a form. Well, that's where you can go and learn about them. So we've got that up there. And then this is the form that we want you to go fill out. We have some questions there. Some of them are just for you, just for your own exercise. Fill them out. And we're going to be giving those away based on the quality of the response. We've got a good number to give away. And what you can do is you can take these certificate vouchers over to the website. Sorry, my train of thought it got zoomed, and well, in this case, StreamYarded. And you can take one of our certification exams for free. And we have a variety of both in Terraform and Vault. And what is the third one that we added here? Let me double check. The third one that we added, of course, Console. So our networking one as well. You can check those out and use those to get a certification, which absolutely go a long way in getting your foot in the door, because once again, it is something that shows you know what you're talking about. So again, that's the form right there on screen. I'm going to put that link in the chat, in the LinkedIn chat and the YouTube chat right now as myself. So and we just had that drop on YouTube as well. So be sure to go and check those out. Check that form out. It's pretty short. And we do have questions actually from all of our panelists on there. Okay. And then, of course, HashiCorp careers, you can go ahead and check those out. We've got a lot of open positions. We'd love to see you come through and potentially work with you. And finally, connect with our panelists here. You see us all. We're all on LinkedIn at the very least. And then also on any other social media, all of us are nice. We won't bite, except maybe Jasmine. I'm kidding. She doesn't bite. And we can have a conversation about whatever it is, including this topic or anything else that we have our expertise in. Okay. that brings us to a close. Thank you so much, panelists, for taking the time to come out and share your lessons and advice. And of course, thank you everyone in the audience that came out and participated for your commentary and your questions. This topic, it can be kind of an odd one, right? It can get lost in the numbers and we forget that people are behind them. It can be easy to take for granted for where you are. We've also seen a lot of humility in the stories that we've heard. And it can also be hard to see how things can get better. But hopefully what we've talked about today can help you take another step towards whatever future it is that you're seeking to build. Does anyone else have any other last thoughts they would like to throw in?
You took it all. That was great.
All right. Well, that's all for us. Until next time.